Now, my next guest has always had a passion for music and singing, I think. He was a choir boy. He was a flutist as a child as well. But then he turned his focus to his footballing skills and he ended up playing for Manchester City. Then an injury forced him back into music. He's gone on to perform all over the world, supporting the likes of Billy Ocean and Girls Aloud. And he starred in the Rat Pack tour in the West End as Sammy Davis Jr. Well, you can see him this weekend, this Saturday, in fact, at the Lawrence Batley Theatre in Huddersfield, as he is in a tribute to the Rat Pack with the Northern Swing Orchestra at Lawrence Batley Theatre. I'm very, very pleased to welcome the incredible talents of Jim Whitley. Hi, Jim.
Hello, Gayle. You okay?
Yes, I'm fine. Oh my goodness, how many talents do you want? Do you just want everybody's talents?
Why not? Why not? No, that was quite interesting. Quite interesting listening to that. I was like, oh yeah, okay, yeah.
And that,
quite a bit,
and that,
actually, so.
and of course, let's not forget how brilliant an artist you are as well.
Yes, yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah, well, yeah. One tries one's best, as they say, Gayle.
Well, it certainly sounds like life is never dull for you. How long have you been doing Sammy Davis Jr.?
Do you know what? It's probably now about 10, 12 years. I don't know where the time's gone.
Oh.
But it was a new challenge, and one I learned how to tap, which is fantastic on stage. But I think people always ask about how different it is from playing football to singing. But in many aspects, it's very similar because you have to perform at a certain time. And when I used to play football, and it was 3:00 kickoff, when you went onto the pitch, you had to perform. You had to become someone else. And it's exactly the same. We will be this Saturday when it's time to perform. You go on, there's an audience there, different numbers, but you have to do exactly the same thing. And I enjoy it.
Which gave you, or still would give you, the most nerves? Going out and playing football in front of a massive crowd, or going to into the theatre? Where if thinking about it now, where are the nerves?
Well, I'll tell you now, it's probably the theatre, because when you play football, there's another 10 other outfield players you can put the blame on, whereas when you're on your own, stood there on stage, and it's just you with the band behind you, that could be quite nerve-wracking, especially when words don't come when they're supposed to, and
Oh my
so that's probably the most nerve-wracking. But I had a humongous buzz playing football for Manchester City, but very, very, very similar.
What sort of, if you don't mind me just hopping back to the football for a moment, what sort of state were Manchester City in when you were playing for them? Where were they, if you know what I mean? And forgive me, I'm not the world's biggest football fan.
Well, we dropped down from which is now kind of the Premiership. We dropped down a couple of divisions, and I'll tell you now that the fans would let you know how they felt about it.
Gosh,
On the so it wasn't the best at times, but I don't know. I've got to say I was probably quite liked a little bit on the terraces, because I kind of gave 100% on the pitch, and I ran all over the place, so they did appreciate my efforts on that front. But it was, look, that was part and parcel of football, and I enjoyed it, and that was part of the team that kind of brought everything back up again. So good and bad times, I think, for Manchester City. But they were there through thick and thin. They still kept coming, even though they said they wouldn't. They'd still turn up. So.
Well, wow, what a life. Well, tell us about the show this Saturday. What can we expect? Because you're there with the Northern Swing Orchestra, so it's you, and who else will we see?
Well, the other singers on show will be Paul Pashley, who'll be playing Frank, and a guy called Stephen Mayer.
I've seen Paul Pashley before. He's brilliant. Yes,
he's very well known, especially around Manchester. And but so we'll be the singers. But I think what sets this apart is we're supported by Jonathan Wyatt Big Band, which is the Northern Swing Orchestra. It's a 16-piece big band. You don't normally get this in theatres or anywhere really, one through cost, and so to hear the big band behind us as singers standing on stage is a wonderful thing, and it kind of takes you back to what it probably would have sounded like back in the day. So if you're into that, then that's the thing that sets this apart, because it is such a wonderful sound on stage.
Do you have a bit of banter as well in character, or is it just the songs?
No, there is a bit of banter. I think I'm probably the
Oh,
most experienced, probably out of the lot of them, with when it comes to being in character. For because I've done Sammy for so long,
yeah,
I wouldn't know how to do Sammy any other way. So I'll try my hardest to do as best as I can for Sammy. But yeah, there is a bit of stick, but there is some standalone songs just where the band will play and you sit and listen, because like I say, you don't get it much. You really don't. And if you had to go to the West End and get the big band, you'll pay a lot more money for it.
absolutely. Yeah, yeah.
So it is a feature to come and have a look at.
So, when you started doing Sammy Davis Jr., I think before that had you done? Was it Nat King Cole? Did you do that for? Did you do
Yes,
him for a while as well? So when you
yes.
learn to do a character like that, do you have to watch a lot of their performances to pick up, a little bit of their mannerisms and their style?
Yeah, I mean, Nat King Cole's my first. It's probably easier on the voice actually to do Nat King Cole. But look, I was fresh out of water. Being on stage then, looking back, was probably quite embarrassing. I thought I was doing a good job, but I look back and go, actually, no, I wasn't really. Um,
Bet
you
you
try
weren't.
your hardest, you know. You just learn as you go along. And the thing, the beauty of this is I've been lucky enough to be on stage a lot of the time with other West End singers or others who are at the top of the game, and you learn very quickly from the top artists, especially when things go wrong. What do they do when things go wrong? And you learn from that very quickly. And so
Yeah.
Sammy Davis Jr. right now is an unbelievable act. When I looked at how his kind of portfolio of things he's done. He's an incredible artist, and I can't be like him exactly because he's
Mm.
just phenomenal. So I try and sing it as best as I can, put a nuance of a little bit of tap in there, and try and give a flavour of Sammy. I'll never be him, but
Oh,
it's something that
brilliant.
it'll send people back into the moments that they can remember listening to the music, and I hope they leave with a smile on their face.
I'm sure they will. I bet people absolutely love that. Just the idea of a big band and the Rat Pack. What is not to like there? What a
Yes.
fantastic sounding show. What songs do you love performing the most?
There's quite a few actually with Sammy Davis Jr. and
Yeah.
especially with the boys as well, so that we intertwine. But I think the one that gets the most admiration and the one that's talked about a lot when we do meet and greets and whenever we see any of the audience members is Mr. Bojangles. I don't know why, but there's a lot of people who have infinities, Mr. Bojangles. I don't know whether Robbie Williams had brought it into the fold when
Yeah.
he did his big swing album, but Mr. Bojangles is fantastic. And I've got a little story actually. I remember going to a gig abroad, and I was at Heathrow Airport, and I had a big Great Dane at home. And I got a phone call from my other half, and he died when I was at the airport.
Oh
So I
no.
couldn't be with my dog, and I had to go
Oh.
and perform that night. And Mr. Bojangles, I had to perform, and midway through the song, it talks about his dog not being
Oh.
with him. And oh my lord, on stage, I nearly lost the plot altogether. It was almost a blubbering mess on
Oh.
stage.
And
And
it
if you're a
just and
dog
it
lover,
took
you'll
you
know
took
about
you
this.
by surprise as
Oh,
well.
it took me by surprise. I couldn't be with my dog, and then to go and perform that song that night. Wow! I mean, they probably would have heard the emotion in my voice actually, but it was. Oh, that was
Bless
one of the toughest
you.
times to try and sing. But yeah, Mr. Bojangles,
Oh
of all the
gosh.
songs, is my
Well, I think.
biggest one.
Well, you might want to switch us off now because I think I'm going to play it. So,
Thank you.
oh no, it's been so
I'll turn off.
lovely to talk to you. If people want to find out more about you, you do have a website actually, don't you? A lot of your artwork's on there as well.
Yes, my artwork and my music's on there. It's jim-whitley.co.uk or even Jim Whitley .co.uk. You'll
Yeah,
find me on there
just do a
on any of the
search.
search engines. So
Yeah,
I'll be
perfect.
there.
Perfect. Well, thank
Okay.
you so much for coming on for a chat. It's been lovely to talk to you. Jim Whitley, otherwise known as Sammy Davis Jr., and you can go and see him this weekend at the Lawrence Batley Theatre. It is a tribute to the Rat Pack with the Northern Swing Orchestra. Thank you so much, Jim. You take care. Have a good one.
Thank you, Gail.
Ta-ra.